The Lance got some massive buffs. Previously, I ranked the Lance as one of the worst weapons in Monster Hunter Now. But will these buffs finally fix the Lance and make it a top tier weapon? As a Lance main, I'm pretty excited about these buffs. They tried to address two major problems that the Lance had: its damage and mobility. Some parts of the patch notes were very vague, so we'll be doing our own research and comparing the Lance's performance pre-patch and post-patch to find out just how good these buffs are. Now, it says right here that Niantic increased the damage for multiple attack actions. When taking a closer look at this footage, both against an 8-star Deviljho using the same Zinogre Lance at grade 7-5, the high thrust damage is the same. The Lance's special move also deals the same damage. Even the regular dash attack is just the same. The biggest damage buff that I found was from counter thrusts. Successful counters got a 49% increased damage. Countering Deviljho's attacks got buffed from dealing 1,534 damage to 2,289 damage. Now that's a huge buff. I tested the counter thrust on different monsters and the 49% damage increase is consistent. Now I'm very happy that the counter thrust got buffed, since this is my go-to move for getting those perfect guards. Dealing higher damage is just a cherry on top. But sadly, that's the only attack buff that I found after the update. The other attacks dealt pretty much the same damage. Niantic said they buffed multiple attack actions, but that's the only one I found. If you found the other Lance attacks that got buffed, let me know in the comments. For mobility buffs, the Lance got an increased movement distance when attacking far from the monster. If there's a bit of distance between you and the monster, your hunter will do a lunging thrust. Your hunter will seamlessly perform an advancing step, closing the gap between you and the monster before doing a thrusting attack. I love this change. There have been multiple times where my high thrust would whiff just because there's a small gap between me and the monster, or times where I would need to swipe up and do a couple of awkward short hops just to chase the monster. This new lunging thrust will allow us to keep up our offense almost seamlessly. No more awkward hops in between combos, only smooth lunging thrusts. Now Niantic also increased the speed of dash attacks. Before, this was my go-to move for approaching the monsters. But now that they added the lunging thrust, there's no real reason to use the dash attack anymore. Its final hit is unsafe, and you should only use it if there's quite a big distance between you and the monster. But be careful. If you and the monster are so far apart, dash attack will no longer trigger. If you tap or swipe up, instead of dashing, your hunter will slide towards the monster. Personally, I'm not a big fan of this change. If the monster attacks and you're in the middle of the sliding animation, you will be punished. Unlike the dash attack where you can stop and block the attack. Speaking of guarding and dashing, guard dashing has also been improved. It now transitions smoother from a knockback. Guard dash is the follow-up move you can do to reposition yourself after getting knocked back. But taking a closer look at the footage, personally, I don't see the difference. Your hunter will still start to transition into a guard dash and end with an attack at about the same time. It doesn't really matter though, since I barely use this move. The last change is a reduced vulnerability after certain attack actions. Once again, it's not clear what these attack actions are, but it did feel like I could recover faster after every thrusting attack. I tend to recover just in time to block attacks and get an unintentional perfect guard. Now, I'm not sure if this is true since Niantic's patch notes were not specific, so I still wouldn't risk the third thrusting attack if you already see the monster glowing red. Niantic also did various minor changes that they won't specifically share to us. But personally, I love all the buffs that they made to the lance. The damage buff feels good, and the lunging thrust feels even smoother. It certainly reduced the number of my whiffed attacks. The sliding change is something that I'll need to get used to, but I think it's a great change for the lance's mobility, especially against monsters that love to move around. But were these buffs enough to make the lance a top tier weapon? No, but it's certainly not the worst weapon anymore. Failing to perfect guard attacks can still be very punishable, and can cost you a ton of HP even if you successfully block the attack. But as you keep on practicing, you get used to the timings and you become more consistent with perfect guarding, taking only a few chip damage out of every hunt. So if you want to master the lance, you'll need to learn how to consistently perfect guard attacks. For that, you might want to check out this video.